Hello and welcome to this episode of the Game Plan podcast by College Baseball Advisors. On the Game Plan, we talk to mostly college coaches about their journey through their youth playing experience, high school, their recruiting process, their college experience, and of course the journey in their coaching career, lessons learned, information about the current institution they're at, how they go about coaching, how they go about recruiting. My name is Wayne Mazzoni. I coach college baseball 30 years, and now I run College Baseball Advisors, where I help kids and parents navigate the craziness of the recruiting process. And make no mistake, if you've been through it, you know how crazy it is. For more information about what I do, please visit my website, collegebaseballadvisor.com. On today's episode, we had Matt Parrington, who's the head baseball coach at Macalaster College, probably the longest tenured college coach in the state of Minnesota. He actually started at Macalaster in 97 or 98, I believe, as an assistant, and then took over in 2000. He's been the head coach there ever since, coming off a great year where they went to a regional last year. So really just an awesome conversation about a guy who's been doing it a long time at the same place, and a lot of lessons learned through his coaching experience, and just a really great guy in general. You can tell he's coaching life through the sport of baseball. We talked a lot about how he talks about emotional intelligence and the mental game. It's really a lot to learn outside of just, college baseball, more life lessons in this podcast. So really, really enjoyed it. So without further delay, here is my conversation with Matt Parrington, head baseball coach at Macalaster College. So Matt, first and foremost, thank you to taking the time in the summer schedule. You were just in Boston, which we may, talk about what the life is like for a coach, at your level in the summertime. So first of all, welcome and thank you for joining me.
I'm glad to be with you, Wayne.
So as I do my research on everybody, it's very easy to get all the info on someone's career, but not always can you find out what you want about their childhood, which is what I want to kind of start off with you. But are you a born and raised in Minnesota?
Yeah, I was the only one in my family born in Minnesota. My family moved here from the south side of Chicago. My dad was relocated because of a job. So I grew up, experienced 4 full seasons of weather.
And what was your sports background? Obviously baseball. Did you play other sports formally or informally growing up?
Yeah, I'm from a very athletic family, and it's kind of baseball, basketball, football, and loved playing all of those sports. I didn't quite get the stronger than I. So football, I phased out of that going into my junior year of high school. But basketball and baseball were my true passion. And I was able to play both those sports all the way through high school. And then I played baseball in college, of course.
What do you remember back, about your process of going from high school to playing baseball in college?
For me, we were pretty successful in all the sports that I played in high school. It was a good era. And so my compete level was very high. I was used to being in the mix in everything, and also used to kind of fighting for everything at the same time. So when I transitioned from high school to college, I felt like mentally I was ready. I just think it was more some of the refining some of the skill set. When I focused just in on baseball, I was able to tap into more of my potential.
But in terms of even like recruiting, I mean, we're at least somewhat of the same age where like the recruiting process that you do now is completely 180 different from what you must have experienced when you're in high school. So how did you go from your high school? Because you went to Minnesota State, correct? How
Yeah.
did, how did,
Yeah.
how did the
So,
two sides connect?
fortunately for me, there was an inside connection there. There was a player that was 4 years older than me from my high school that was very successful there. So when my name popped up on these lists, the all conference, all state type lists, my college coach, the guy, Dean Boyer, became my college coach. But he was just real persistent, along with, I was recruited by a lot of junior colleges as well, and then some of your local Division threes. But Mankato was very successful, highly competitive. A lot of people that I competed against were going to Mankato, and everyone likes to win. I certainly, was in line with that. But, ultimately, Coach Boyer was persistent enough. There wasn't a ton of scholarship money at the Division II level at the time, but it was enough to feel like you're wanted. And, it's completely different than it is now. I know that's kind of where you're going with it.
Yeah.
There was no skills video. It was a long distance phone call, 90 minutes south of here. So it was a commitment. And ultimately, I visited the campus before I was really being recruited. My mom had forced me to go visit some colleges. And God love her for it. I was the youngest of three, and she was ready to push me out of the house. But yeah, it was a really good decision for me in the sense that I played for a highly competitive person, very Christian man, really helped a lot of people off the field as well. And to this day, he's in my Rolodex and someone that calls me on a fairly regular basis. Kind of unique situation with our class. His son was a redshirt in our class. So he was parent and coach in our class. And I think that gave him a special bond with a lot of the families in our graduating era.
This many years later, what do you take away about your playing time in college? Like, did you get playing time immediately? Was it what you expected when you started there? What do you remember about, the 4 years of playing?
Yeah, I was recruited as a pitcher position player. I was pretty athletic. And I remember watching the first practice, watching the infield, outfield of the varsity players. And I go, you know what? I see why I'm here. Not from a cocky, arrogant standpoint, but I knew I could help. Fortunately for me, I was pretty good at both. I wound up getting hurt as a pitcher, but I was batted left-handed, was athletic, and could do some things. So I had some success early on, and then I had a lot of struggles. There was a lot of injuries and things like that, and then some self-doubt creeped in, but also just the perseverance. And I'd always go home and play summer ball, kind of reset, and then just give it another try. But yeah, I was kind of chasing injuries the whole time, and that was the downside of it. But overall, it was a great experience, and a lot of my lifelong friends, and like I said, my college coach, even though he was highly competitive, he was tough, but he was fair. And those are things that I like to transition into my coaching, is treating people the right way and calling a spade and being honest and being upfront about things. And I felt I played for an ABC Hall of Fame coach, and hopefully I've gleaned a lot of the positives that he brought to the table, and I can share that with my guys.
I like that you said self-doubt. I mean, baseball is absolutely brutal. Here I am in Connecticut. I have a guy that I coached at Sacred Heart who has played the last three games for the New York Mets, all three losses to the Boston Red Sox. I mean, in like Lindor the other day, like it was yesterday's game, he has a ground ball to him, which basically could end the game as a double play, and he blows it, and then the Mets lose the lead. And so it's like, here it is, the best in the world. This sport is brutal. So, like, you learning that as a player, having this self doubt probably helps you as a coach to have empathize with these guys when they're struggling, because everybody, no matter how good they are, struggles in our sport for sure.
Oh, most definitely. And then kind of extrapolating on that, when you're in high school and you're a pretty good player, even if you're struggling, you're still getting those chances. Now in college, there's more good players, and there's
Right.
people that are ready to go, and the coach goes another direction, and that's humbling. And those are the things you have to deal with, that it's not about you anymore, it's about the team. And I think from a mental skills standpoint, that's been one of the biggest evolutions in my career over the last 15 years, is really getting into more of the mental aspect of the game and realizing the significance of that and how it can really impact people's ability, A, to be present, but B, to produce and just have a better overall experience.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I'm not coaching now, but towards the end of my career, that was kind of the same thing that I was uh, into as well. And it's funny, your modern high school kid, they all know how to lift weights these days. They all know how to get lessons. They know how to throw plyos all day long. But most of them don't tap into anything as it relates to the mental game, really, until they get to college and, get to somebody around you and can actually teach them those skills. And ultimately, probably are the most important skills to succeed in college is the mental game.
Absolutely agreed. And I think my foray into it was inspired by Ramp C, Ken Revisa baseball, very basic, very um, just digestible by a variety of people. And then it's led into other areas. But yeah, I think we're all looking for a competitive advantage. And as you said, kids understand nutrition and strength training, and they all have hitting experts and throwing experts and all this. So it's, what is the edge that we can bring to our program? And we have really leaned into that and have allocated significant time to it.
And I do want to unpack that more. What I want to ask you now, though, is at the end of your playing career back in college, did you A, think you had a chance to play baseball for a living, number one, and try to pursue that? Did you know if not, you were going to coach right away? Because I, read your bio, you kind of did a little bit of the business side of baseball first. So what was the path that took you from player to eventually getting into coaching?
Great question. And like most college athletes, particularly in our sport, you think that you can get paid to play this game. It just wasn't in the cards for me. So having to pivot, fortunately, I did 5 years of undergrad that gave me a little bit of cushion to ease into a graduate assistantship. Even though I pitched in high school, I didn't really know how to teach it.
Right.
So my mentor, the previous GA, really helped me understand how to teach pitching. And it was before the pitching revolution that we've been going through the last 25 years. So I was able to do that. And then after graduate school, I just couldn't find a job in baseball or in sports. So just kind of pieced things together. Had another person I knew through Minnesota State Mankato was working for the Brewers. Place to call to my college coach. He gave me a little nudge and said, "Hey, this might be a position for you to get into sports." So I worked in sales for the Milwaukee Brewers. It was a kind of an interesting era. It was right after the pivotal bill that was passed to pay for Miller Park at the time. So there were a lot of people on both sides of this equation. So when you're on the phone trying to sell season and group tickets, you're getting an earful from some people that were very unhappy. But after that, it just got to the point where I needed to get a job. I needed to make some money. I needed to be able to earn vacation time so I could go live a normal life as someone in their mid to upper 20s. So uh, went into the business world, and all of a sudden fate intervened. The person that was the first full-time head coach at Macalaster was a graduate assistant at Minnesota State at one point, and we connected. He hired me part-time, and with the understanding that I could move back home rent-free with my family and pursue baseball. So I kind of knew he wanted out. And second year of that relationship, he was elevated to interim AD. That gave me more and more responsibility on the baseball side of things with recruiting, everything that goes into it, because his plate was full. And then the third year after that, he was hired as an AD somewhere else, and I became the head baseball coach. So, it was a windy path to get to an actual position that paid full time with benefits. And I tell my players all the time. I said, I didn't have a paid vacation day till I was in tenacity if you really want something in life. And fortunately for me, I had a good enough support system where I paid the cable bill for rent, at my parents' house, and I was able to really grow and learn and develop my craft.
So what was your first year in coaching?
I want to say it was 1997.
So 1997, and that was at Macalester.
That was at Macalaster in the fall of 97. Yes.
Okay, so you're one of the very rare guys, very rare, you know where I'm going with this, who's coached his whole career at one institution, and then was it in 2000 is when you took over, correct?
Correct.
Was
Yeah.
there
So
was that an obvious move? Like I think you kind of said it the way he took you on. Did you know that the position was going to be yours when he moved up for the AD position?
I had a pretty good idea because it was kind of midstream. So I had been doing an awful lot of the recruiting prior to that, anyways, and the player development. So yeah, it was fairly predictable at that point. But what wasn't predictable is how long I would be at Macalester.
Right.
As I worked my way into this, the inaugural conference tournament was my first year in 2000. We made it that year. So as someone young, naive, and energetic, you think this is going to be the way it is all the time. And only 4 teams made it. So we were very fortunate that year. And then there were a lot of challenges. But we steadied the ship. And through figuring some things out and how to recruit in a high academic sphere, was one of the greatest challenges, which I also think was a blessing to me being an assistant coach here first,
Right.
simply because I was able to learn under someone else's watch. But, my first 10 to 12 years, I had ample opportunity to lead Macalester. Um, I was offered multiple positions. And as I look back on it, I'm glad I was selective because ultimately I think being at Macalaster, being in the Twin Cities, being close to family are things that I really value. I think regardless of level that you coach, you want to be able to make an impact and a difference. And so reflecting back, like I said, I'm actually quite glad that I stayed. The grass is not always green around the other side. And to kind of wrap it up, I never would have met my wife if I hadn't have stayed. I got married a little bit later in life, and it was one of the great blessings of my life to meet her and get married. And we're 17 years into marriage right now, and she's a pretty good coach's wife or coach's husband. Yeah, coach's
Yeah,
wife.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you obviously strike me as a very nice, normal, humble guy, I can tell. So you probably won't know this answer, but you are probably the longest tenured coach at the college level in Minnesota, I would guess. I mean, I don't know of anyone at the moment that's been at the institution as head coach more than you have, 26 going into 27 years.
It's interesting you say that. There have been a couple recent retirements. Jerry Haugen at St. John's retired last year, and Matt McDonald retired this year. They both would have been at this longer than I. So I think I am the elder statesman within the coaching rank in the MIAC. And my guess is at the Division II conferences, I'm probably the longest lasting guy as well.
And which I'll say this, and again, you're the one living it, but I have been out of coaching since 22. And as a recruiting guy slash the podcast, I interact with a lot of people. And I'm telling you, being at an institution like you're at and being comfortable and still enjoying what you do and not chasing the next job all the time. I think you have it all figured out. I really do. I believe that. And I mean, I had Greg Goff on from Purdue. Wonderful guy. Wonderful guy. He told me he had 14 stops before he got to Purdue. To each their own, but that's not a life I would want to live. And I think you did the right move by staying at Macalaster at a great place and being there so long, which kind of leads to my next question. I only know Macalaster by reputation. I've actually never stepped foot in the state of Minnesota, which is somewhat incredible how great I hear it is. And I happen to love the seasons in the winter, but I digress. Point is, I only know it's a great institution. So what should I know? What should people watching it who've never been to campus know about Macalaster?
I think the thing about Macalaster in the sphere of schools that we recruit against, high academic liberal arts, one of the unique characteristics is we're in an urban setting. So the metropolitan area is about 3.8 million, and we're midway between the downtown. So that's number one. Number two is it's a very mission-driven institution. When you think about the pillars of the college, I challenge our players, there has to be a crescendo effect to these pillars. You have to understand them and work towards them and realize there's value in internationalism, multiculturalism, service, and academic excellence. And then I also say, having done this a long time, you kind of are able to articulate things more clearly the longer you do this. So when I think about the college as being mission driven, our program is also mission driven. And we use three phrases: win the day, team first, and trust, to really explain to people potentially what are the points of distinction at an institution like this and how your son is going to be treated, how we're going to go about this. And it's not that it's unique and just Macalaster, but when you blend those things together with some wisdom and some experience, you can really start to put your thumb on people that are really just embrace this environment. And also, for us, I think being able to attract people that are baseball centric that can also get into these types of schools. I think all of us in this sphere are chasing that.
Yes.
Fortunately, we've been pretty lucky of late to really start to accumulate players that are willing to grind at baseball. They love economics, they love pre-med, but they're grinding at baseball. And that's what it's going to take to compete in a conference like this.
Yeah, it's a very good point. You've said that from similar schools to you, but even a school a stone's throw for me is Fairfield U, Division I, but it has a great reputation as an academic institution, great connections to the business world and Wall Street. So a lot of kids previously would go there for what it means after college, and the new regime of coaches there has made it, hey, we want baseball kids first. That want that too, but and you said it perfectly, and you're right. The higher the academic thing, sometimes it can be tough to get a dirt dog on the baseball field, and obviously you've done that. A few questions about your coaching and about the program itself. I can tell already kind of what your coaching style is. I love it already. I think the pillars and just the way you go about it and your experience. But one thing I noticed is you might have the biggest coaching staff in college baseball, certainly Division III. What's going on there, Matt? What's the scoop with all that staff you got?
Hey, I just want to be covered in case there's a brawl on the field. I got all my flanks covered. Well, kind of a cool thing. This will be entering our fourth year. This is our first full-time assistant, Nick Wooster, was hired 3 years ago, and just has impacted our program in so many ways. I said publicly in front of our group when we had a record-setting year this year that this would not have happened without Nick, and just a lot of kudos to him for what he brings to the table. But the other guys on there, our pitching coach, Greg Weber, is our largest stipend position. So what I tried to do, and I think coaches that are watching this can understand, your pitching coach position is so tenuous oftentimes, is that I wanted someone that would stay. And he was highly recommended. He's like a vice president at a bank in commercial banking and really loves baseball. So we had added some continuity there. So he's our largest stipend position. And then all the other guys that are in there, they're paid very minimal. My expectation is practice is a priority over a game. Development is a priority over a lot of different things. So we have each of those guys is not at every single practice.
Right.
So we can kind of cover things. Myself and Nick do the bulk of the recruiting. Everyone else, we have all positions covered, and then I help out in all areas. So it's not as impressive as it is on the site there, but all of those guys add value, and we wanted them acknowledged as well.
And that's great. And it's also a testament to you to say, hey, whatever way that makes this program better, I'm happy to. You're not, Matt Parrington doesn't have to do everything. He's able to delegate if necessary. And when I was looking at your site, I was thinking about, and things have changed since I got out of coaching, but my last year coaching at Sacred Heart, I was the pitching coach. And there were 4 coaches, 3 that dealt with the position players, and me, the only guy with the pitchers, and I had 22 pitchers. And then I would go watch our basketball team practice where there was like 4 coaches and 15 guys that go, something's not, it's a 1-on-22 over here. So listen, the more help these guys can get, everyone wants to get better, and good for you to have that environment where those coaches can feel, hey, if you can make Tuesday, Thursdays, that makes us better, as long as, you want to be involved and be around the game. This may be an easier hard one. You can answer it, what hasn't changed and what has changed. And I'm talking on the field baseball specifically. What's changed, what has not changed in your time at Macalaster, literally on the field? Is it the same old baseball? Is it completely different? What do you feel, what have you seen in your time there that feels changed and doesn't feel changed?
Great question, and it's loaded. But what I would say is, one thing I've learned in coaching is you have to be adaptable. And I've had to adapt and reinvent myself, and my philosophy has had to evolve based on the hand of cards that were dealt. So I think we were ahead of trend in 16, 17, and 18 in elevating the ball. We had the type of athletes that could do that. And now we've kind of cycled back to being more of a small ball manufacturer, much better defensive team, lower the ERA, just making ourselves more difficult to beat. So I think what has led to my longevity was that willingness to adapt, that willingness to bring on people with different ideas into our program. For example, Ted Weedman is our number 2 pitching guy, and he's more of a pitch design guy, and he certainly has things that he views differently than me, but it's been really fun to watch him evolve and impact the way our pitchers go about things and the way they're able to understand the data, understand their spin rate and efficiency, and how it can build a menu of pitches that allows them to be competitive at the velocity that they're at. So I think the biggest part of the game that's changed are guys like Ted,
right,
that really understand that and then can communicate it well enough and allow people in a college setting to grow and to develop. And that's why we have 20 pitchers and 20 position players. So it's a matter of, for us, we've always been a development program, and we've had certain blips in the radar where we've been very successful, but make no mistake about it, we're very proud of the work that we do. And not all of that work is rewarded on the field with playing time with our guys, but they're still grinding, they're still pushing themselves. So I really like that. And I think the thing that hasn't changed, and I know everyone kind of complains about the players or kids in this respect, but culture's changed. The kids haven't changed, culture's changed. So you and I are from the same era and generation. And if we want to be rigid and just look at things a certain way, we can poo-poo this generation. But that doesn't, it's not the interest of anyone if you're trying to connect with people and you're trying to work towards a common goal. The game has just changed. Data and information has changed the game, but I like how it's kind of coming back to you look at the Rays, for example, and how they're running and they're doing different things. And that's more the style that we played the last couple of years, and it's really benefited us.
I guess perfect time to ask you, what do you think brought on such a good year this past year? Was it getting the right players? Was it coaching in a different way? Was it just the way that the team gelled? Is there anything you could put your finger on that led to such a great year?
It's a combination of things. I think number one, this group was able to maximize everything that we had. No one expected us to produce at the level that we did this year. Ultimately, we had the same team as the year before that had a lot of struggles. We did add one very special player, a switch hitting center fielder, 3-hole hitter as a freshman, but everyone else just got better. They got sick and tired of being cannon fodder for the rest of the conference and put our foot down. So I think having seniors this year that really stepped up and were able to hold their spot the entire year and excel really made our lineup tough 1 through 9. We had the one freshman that impacted us on the field statistically. The other 11 freshmen all played in some level, are all coming back and all got better. So I'm very, very proud of that fact in this era where if you're not getting what you want at that moment, you tend to peel off and find the path of lesser resistance. Yeah. Number two, I've mentioned both names, having a full-time assistant like Nick Wooster and then adding a second pitching coach, Ted Weedman, really into that. Like you said, it's 20 guys. One guy cannot do that.
Cannot.
So being able to add more detail to everything that we've done was really, I think, a culmination of having Nick on staff and really benefiting from that. And then the third part of it, we kind of went through a cultural reset a couple of years ago. And talk about reinventing yourself. You have to find different ways to do the same thing at a higher level. So we had a consultant come on board. And again, I had to be open to that. And I was. I knew I wanted some things to be different. So he's trained as a sports psychologist, but he also deals with culture building. So we kind of started at that aspect and then got into more of the things that the guys really wanted to get into was emotional regulation, self-talk, just different things that help you be more present and give the best version of what you have on that day at that moment. So it's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think all of those things factored in. And then lastly, some good fortune. When you're in sports, whether you're the most talented team or not, good fortune's a big part of it. So we were very successful in one-run games. There were a variety of reasons for that. It's not all just luck and good fortune.
Of course, right.
But we put ourselves in position. And my overall philosophy is I want our team to be in tight baseball games. I want everything that happens in practice to matter. I want total attention to the detail. So when we're there, we're like, hey, this is why we're working on this stuff.
Yeah, you got me fired up because all those things are so important that you have to practice like you play. You have to practice under pressure. You have to practice the little things that will come up in a regional that may only come up a couple of times, but if you don't do them right on a bunt defense or something, there goes the whole game or the season, and the little things matter. In addition, this kid as a freshman switch hitting center fielder batting third. That's a special. I don't care what level you're at. That's a special kid to come in, hit third, and actually switch hit. The amount of switch hitters is a dying breed too. So that's a pretty special kid. It sounds like.
We've been pretty fortunate with our switch hitters. All have been elite. And ironically, great story about this kid. When I met him, I was told that he taught himself how to switch hit during COVID. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm holding a stone face here, just thinking like, where is this going?
Right.
I've seen some bad switch hitters. But lo and behold, he was pretty good the year I saw him. And then 2 years later, when we finally landed him, obviously his left-handed bat had come around a long ways because most of his at-bats were coming that way. So just very, very fortunate. And again, he's playing at a pretty good level back home, and we're excited to have him return and for 3 more exciting years.
Let's turn that to a perfect time to talk recruiting. I guess I want to ask you two things on it. How do you go about um, that smaller list of kids? Just call it the 27 class for the sake of, a group of kids. Obviously, there's hundreds of thousands of 27s in the country. Obviously, you're going to start shrinking the list based on the academics, Macalaster being a very difficult school to get into. How do you cull that list down, or how does that list build in the first place? Like, before we talk about what you might be looking for from a player, how do these names come up on your radar just to start with?
Yeah, there's an art and a science to recruiting. Kind of what you're referring to, building the pool is probably more the science part of it. So it's just an ongoing effort by myself and Coach Wooster, and then using all the information that we get and watching videos and this and that. But we're constantly filling the funnel of 27s, 28s, and 29s. So, for example, before we hit record, I told you I was out in Boston at the Boston Classic and then another event, the H3 event. And I was ultimately out there following 8 guys. And I wanted to say no. And I was very disciplined not to add many players, if any, to my list, because our list is big enough at this point. And the urgency at these high academic schools with November 1 looming right down the road. And we try to get decisions by the middle part of October. So again, I'm trying to say no internally and then finding the right way to communicate that with families that, hey, you're a guy that we want to move forward with, talk about a visit, or maybe you're a guy that's going to be in our second tier and we're going to need some time to figure this out. So building of the pool is constant. The first part of your question, as you were describing the recruiting process, there's some anxiety that builds up in every coach.
Oh, yeah.
All the classes overlap, and then there's just these crescendo moments. So summer is not what it was 40 years ago for college coaches that are out maybe golfing and hanging out at the lake. It's probably our most busy time, in the sense that, the amount of travel that we do, the amount of events that we go to follow up on people, to build our list, and then ultimately to make some decisions. I think you could just keep going and going, but you have to have the discipline and the wisdom to say enough is enough. Where's your point of diminishing returns? I like our list. So this morning, for example, Wayne, Nick and I had our meeting about where we are at with each position and why. So we were able to really pare things down and focus in on recruiting the people that we really like the best that we can, and not always looking out there at the bright, shiny object that is going to be a lot more work at this stage than being comfortable. We've done our due diligence over the last couple of years that we feel good about our 27 pool. We're certainly not saying no to kids that are at a certain level, because we always have kids that enter our funnel late for a variety of reasons,
Right.
that you still have to be open to, but they have to check the right boxes at the right time.
So I love that, and that was really well said. When you're looking at these, let's just call it these 8 kids, and figure out how, we don't have to talk about how they came into that 8 list. I'm sure it was in a variety of ways. And you did just cover it. But if you're at a game at a tournament and you had these 8 kids and this event, and all of a sudden 2 or 3 kids, while you're watching these 8 kids, turn your head, and would you add these kids, or you're going to be trying to lock in enough to go, you know what, I got 8, I don't need more. Will you lock in on those 8 and not put more on, or will that kid that jumps out at you, will that shiny thing go on your list or not?
Yeah, of course. But having the discipline. So there was another coach at a peer institution I was sitting with for a couple hours, and he was doing his thing, I'm doing mine. And I just circled one name. And he's like, aren't you going to write any notes? And I go, no, that kid can play. That kid can play for us right now. What I need to do is make sure I get his contact info and see if he's interested. Quick text with a business card, put the ball in his court. If he's interested, he wants to pursue us, awesome. But we're not going to put much more effort into that at this point, because we feel like our list is pretty good. Now, the flip side of all of this, you have to be able to withstand no. Just
Yeah.
because of those X amount of shortstops on your list, you like them, doesn't mean that they're serious about you. So that's kind of where the art of recruiting comes into play, and asking the right questions at the right time, and knowing when to set deadlines, knowing when to cut bait. Those are things that are really important.
Yeah, that you're right. It is truly an art, right? Because I can imagine, as with every institution, but you'll find guys you like, and they're thinking a higher level or a different location or something, and then what most people, I'm sure they do realize, is probably 9 out of 10 kids who want to play at Macalaster are just not good enough. They probably just skill wise are not good enough. So like it's interesting, you're getting so many kids that reach out to you that want to play, they're not good enough. And then of course on the other side, kids you like, not 10 out of 10 that you call are going to want to commit to Macalaster. So right, it's an art to see, hey, who was interested, and I don't want to waste my time on a kid who's ultimately not interested. Are there any things I'll ask you, I guess, on the field and off. Is there anything particularly on the field that you like? And this could obviously be pitching and position playing. Is there something you particularly like that gets you interested about a player? Could be his ability to bunt, speed. It could be a changeup on the mound. Is there something you look for that way? And then is there something intangible that if you have 5 or 6 kids that have a similar skill set, there's something you might like about his character or his personality that would make him jump out in front of the other kids?
Yeah, and that's a big part of developing your recruiting philosophy. So from a positional standpoint, the word versatility means a lot. So I want versatile players. So for example, we had an all-conference shortstop this year from Houston. His sophomore year, he was our starting center fielder. Defensively, he came in the infield when we made some switches that year, but by and large, he was our starting center fielder. His freshman year, he was a super utility guy. So I like that versatility. Athleticism from both pitchers and position players is important. And, you know, for example, we were talking about a recruit before we hit record, and one of the things I really like about that young man is he looks athletic on the mound. And there's upside there and pitchability. So you kind of combine those things and you realize that not everyone's pitcher is going to jump up in velocity. So can they pitch with what they have? And that's what you need to focus in on. There's other guys that would be more walk-on types that, you know, if they understand the situation, they're going to walk on. So, you know, the intangibles are where I spent most of my time, Wayne, and that's why we want to pare our list down. I take the network that I have is very important to me. So a certain percentage of the guys that wind up at Macalaster are from events, showcases, or tournaments. Other players are from people that I've met in almost 30 years of recruiting that I try to pre-qualify them all the time. I say, I don't need 5 names every year. I need 1 name every other year that understands what we're about. So then we can be more efficient and it makes all parties a little bit happier.
Yeah, I really like that. And I totally agree about the versatility. My only comment as someone that is dealing with sophomores and juniors in the recruiting process, when they tell me, well, I catch and play infield and outfield, and I want every coach to know that, I always say, to me, that looks like you stink at all of them. Like, dude, tell a coach you're a shortstop. He knows you could go to left field or center field. So I think you followed it up by saying athleticism. If you're a legit athlete on the baseball field, you pretty much could put you anywhere, maybe not catcher, which is a unique spot. But I do caution kids that just because you put a bunch of things in an email that you could play them, it doesn't necessarily, win a coach over. And as far as the pitching, I would always say this when I was recruiting, if this helps anyone out there. I always wanted a kid that could pitch as a freshman, meaning he had command, he threw 3 pitches for strikes, he was tough mentally, and that he eventually, by the time he got bigger, stronger, and gained some velocity, he would become a top weekend guy, right? So you don't want to take a project in right away. You want to take a pitchability guy that can get innings right away. And then if he matures and gets better, he becomes elite and maybe even a prospect. Anything, I kind of jumped in there, anything on the side of off the field that you might be looking for that you like or dislike?
Yeah, so I was leaning into the due diligence of following up with high school coach, club coach, hitting instructor, pitching instructor. This stuff matters because not everyone's going to agree on certain things. But when it comes to character, when it comes to desire, passion, things like that, that's what I'm looking for. Because at that point, I already have a pretty good idea this is a guy that we are interested in. Otherwise, I wouldn't be investing that time on a phone call in the middle of June of a guy's junior year if we weren't pretty serious about that. So we rate people on skill and we rate them on intangibles, and they blend together into a number. So there are some guys that are off the charts with their ability, but then there's some red flags. They were a kid that pouted in the corner at an event. They were a kid that had bad body language. And when you have this funnel of people you're trying to work down, you're looking for reasons to continue with people or to put them into your second tier. So it matters. It's just like we talked about at the beginning of this conversation about mental skills, is how do you respond when you're not getting what you want? Mm. And that kind of goes back to that humble, hungry, smart. And smart is about emotional intelligence and realizing you have to be a good teammate. So being aware of these types of things and having a network of people you know well, that you can just get the absolute truth from people because you've been on the phone with them over a course of 20 years, 2 or 3 times, and they remember you, and they had a player in your program, or they had a player that visited your program, really liked the visit, but they wound up going somewhere else for a variety of reasons.
Right.
So it kind of folds into the overall philosophy is, I tell parents sitting in my office all the time, you can't turn an aircraft carrier around very quickly.
Right.
So I want to build on the work that the family has done to help this person realize that the team does not begin and end with them. It's about all of us. And like I always say, how are you going to respond when you don't get what you want?
Yeah, I love what you're saying because there's a second side to it. You want to win games as much as that. You'd like to win every single game and win a national championship. You also want to have a nice career around a bunch of good kids and actually help young men and enjoy the bus trips and the airplane and the airport. You want to be around good people. And so that's huge, right? I mean, listen, if somebody was so gifted that you could put up with a knucklehead, maybe everyone would do it. But for the most part, that's not what coaches are about, especially at a level that it's not like if you don't win another 30 games next year, you're going to get fired, which maybe would bring a whole different vibe to the equation, which, is why you enjoy the level that you're at. But that's just so much time spent together that, yeah, you want to be around good people. All right, my final question here, and this has been great, Matt. You're really, I love everything you're saying. You got me. I'm so happy not coaching, I have to tell you. My life is great, but when I do these and I talk to a guy like you, I want to coach so badly because I also see a lot of bad coaching going around too, or people that aren't open to developing young men like you've talked about. So you're very inspirational to me. The World Baseball Coaches Convention is a tremendous event that takes place in Connecticut. It's in its 23rd year. One of the best coaches conventions, certainly in the best coaching convention in New England, and they sponsor the podcast. So my final question is always with them in mind. And you've kind of talked about it already, but what would you say to the kid that's watching right now that is a sophomore in high school, he's a 2028, and he wants to he wants to land at Macalaster down the road. What does this kid need to be doing day in and day out in whatever way you want to answer it? Sleep, academic, nutrition, strength training, details on the field. What would you say to this kid? Hey, these things you have to be doing for it to work out for us down the road.
Yeah, I think number one, and taking care of the academic side of things, regardless if you're looking at a high academic school or not. The last thing coaches want to do at any level is worry about someone's eligibility. And roster spots are so difficult to get right now that could be a knock against you. So regardless if you're in APs or honors, just do as well as you can. From an athletic standpoint, build your engine. I would say develop your skill and potentially spend less time at showcases and more time really grinding into your development. One of the mistakes I see from families is they just go from showcase to showcase
Amen.
to showcase.
Yep.
And they're not getting any better.
Right.
So, as you enter the funnel as a sophomore, find the right event to go to get your name on the radar. And then your junior year, it's a little more refined. You have a better idea maybe what level you would like to be at, but then be open to honest feedback from your coaches and people that are around you to say, hey, maybe you should be looking at junior college or Division II or Division III or NAIA, because ultimately it's a game that's meant to be played. And if you are looking at choosing a school just based on what's on the front of the jersey, you're going to miss out on some pretty good opportunities. And we've been the beneficiary of a lot of people doing some research and realizing places like Macalaster have an awful lot to offer and very unique experiences at many of these high academic schools. So that's how I would answer that question. And then lastly, just Remember, it's a game. It's a boys' game that's played by teenagers and young men, and you want to realize that it's a time in your life that you'll just cherish. And if you put too much pressure on yourself in the recruiting process, you're not going to be yourself. And if you're the best version of yourself, and you catch a coach's eye, that's probably going to be a pretty good match for you.
Oh my God, there's so much there that I want to comment on it. I absolutely love it all. First of all, from the academic standpoint, not only to get into a good institution, but the better your grades are, the more financial aid, academic money you can get. And we know the cost of college, right, is incredible. Number two, I've said this my whole life. You're the poster guy for this, I'm sure. Most people walking around have no idea how good Division III baseball is. They have no good how good Macalaster is. They haven't watched the game on TV. They haven't watched the game in person, and they just do not understand how good Division III baseball is, especially at the level of teams getting to the regionals. How elite it is. So that's number the second part of it, and the third. I like to start with kids younger when I'm working with them recruiting wise, and I tell them, dude, while you're younger, I don't want to talk recruiting. Let's talk about your development, because the better you get, recruiting can be solved in a day. Like, you have the right day and the right time and you've peaked and you got your 3 pitches working, recruiting is over. But if you're not developing and you're running around thinking it's exposure, you're going to waste a whole lot of time and money and be miserable and wind up playing club ball, which, by the way, is a fun thing to do if you don't make a varsity team. It's a blast, right? But I agree with you. And then finally is, you said it, and I love it. The amount of people, Matt, that are so overwhelmingly stressed out about recruiting. I wish I could just tell them it is a game, play for the joy. When Matt Parrington and Wayne Mazzoni were kids, there was no stress. You just wanted to kick the other team's ass. You didn't think about this stuff, and you didn't worry about who posted what. And so everybody listening, yes, you want to play in college. It is a worthy goal, but enjoy the moment. It could all end quickly, and please don't rush the process. It will take care of itself if you just keep doing the right thing. So thank you for echoing that, because a lot of people are living in the future and not enjoying the day-to-day, and I find it a shame. Life's too short to live that way.
Well said, and just being grateful for what you have, and be grateful for the opportunity to play our game. And it may not go the way that you want, but when you approach it from that mindset, like I said, you're a better version of yourself. You're a better teammate. You're going to be a better mate down the road. When you find that life partner, you're going to be a better coworker. When it's, again, not all about you, it's about the team. And yeah, like I said, it's a game. It's meant to be fun. I mean, you're still involved in the game in some capacity. I'm involved in the game. And, hard work to me is fun. We want people that enjoy that aspect, but make no mistake, it's a game and it's meant to be fun.
Exactly right. All right, Coach, thank you so much for joining me on a Monday when you've been hustling around and flying all over the country. I appreciate it, and I think people are going to learn so much from this. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Wayne. Take care.
All right, let me just hit the stop. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening to this episode with Matt Parrington, head baseball coach at Macalaster College. Hope you took away as much as I did from talking to a really good, mature guy who's talked about how having to adapt, coaching over the years that he's been doing it, still keeping kind of his culture and his principles, but really enjoyed this conversation. Again, I'm Wayne Mazzoni. I coached college baseball from 1992 to 2022 and been running College Baseball Advisor since. For more information about what I do, please visit my website, collegebaseballadvisor.com. On there's a form you can fill out and do an introductory, no obligation Zoom meeting where we can discuss kind of your particular recruiting situation. And if I can be of any help on that call, hopefully that will help you down your, journey. And if you think I'm someone that you'd like to work with going forward, that can certainly be discussed. But it's really just meant to be give you a focus and direction and remove the craziness of the stress from recruiting. So thanks again so much for listening to this episode, and we'll see you on our next episode next week. Thank you so much.